Okay, in this tutorial I'm going to build on some of the themes that I talked about in the step 1 process as we look to answer this next exam question, which is step 2. Now, we need to use all of the knowledge we have so far to help answer this question. So what do we know so far? Well, we know that this here is what we call a warm front. If we turn back in our note set, we should be able to find out exactly the type of weather that you're going to get with a warm front. And what I mean by type of weather, we should have some kind of idea about the temperature. Beg your pardon, that's very messy. Some idea about the temperature. We should have some idea about rainfall that we would experience in a warm front. And we should have some idea about the cloud cover. Okay, so those are three aspects of the weather that a warm front would tell us about. Likewise, we know a little bit about the cold front. We need to really be firm in our knowledge of the cold front and how it's different from the warm front. So, for example, the temperature in a cold front is going to be much colder than it would be in a warm front. The rainfall would be much heavier than in a warm front. So warm fronts bring you steady rain, whereas cold fronts bring you heavy rain. And finally, the clouds, well, we get these sort of nimbostratus clouds when it's a warm front, or cumulostratus, basically different types of clouds, whereas on cold fronts we get the massive rain clouds that are called cumulonimbus clouds. Okay, so that is what we know about the weather to do with fronts so far. We also know, or should know, quite a bit about isobars. So isobars tell us two things. Well, they tell us three things. They tell us about the air pressure, so let's not forget air pressure is part of the weather. But most importantly, when we're describing the weather, they tell us about the wind. And there are two aspects to the wind. There is its direction, where's it coming from? And the from is the most important because we always talk about weather, where does it come from? And we also know its speed. Is it strong? Is it moderate? Is it weak? Okay? And we know that because, once again, one final thing is this type of weather is what we call low pressure, or it's sometimes known as a depression. We know that winds travel in an anti-clockwise direction, which is this way. And they follow these isobars. So that's why we put those lines on, because they show us the direction of the winds. Okay, so these are all the things we should now know. Now, what makes this step 2? Well, I want to introduce you to a couple of important things. First one is you now got to pay attention to this up in the corner. A weather map is always coming from a time of year. In this case, it's the 15th of February. Why is that important? Because at no point are you going to be saying hot weather or really nice weather. This is still kind of winter time, so what you describe about the weather's got to reflect typical weather in winter. The second step is that whilst the British Isles, and in this case Glasgow, stay still, their land at the end of the day, the air above them, that's just the air which is passing you right now wherever you happen to be sitting, is moving. And we should know that the air moves in this direction in the UK, from the west to the east. Okay? Now, and you can see this little map here showing you the path of the weather system. It tells us it's moving in that direction. In this case, actually, it's moving from the southwest to the northeast. Okay? So those are the two key bits of information we need to take on board when trying to answer this question. Because weather is continually moving, and because air moves, that causes the weather to change. If you think about it, the wind moves a cloud, the cloud brings rain, the rain passes overhead and it clears up behind it, and then it's a nice sunny day again. And that's the experience you have with the weather. And what's doing that? Well, air's moving. So how do we answer this question? Well, we've got to bear in mind, we're always thinking about these key things. We are thinking about the wind speed, the wind direction, the temperature, the cloud cover, and the rainfall. Let's have a little look at the question. Explain. So we need to be using this because idea. We need to be giving reasons. What's going to be the changes in the weather? So I don't want to know what the weather is in Glasgow. Well, I do, but I want to know how it's then going to change in the next 24 hours. How can my knowledge of everything on this map here help me understand the weather in Glasgow and how it's going to change? Let's just see how's it starting. Let's go down, because I've actually started this answer for you. Okay. In Glasgow, the wind direction is coming from the southwest. Yes, it is. Remember, anti-clockwise, following the isobars. However, once the two weather fronts have passed, it'll be coming from the west. So in 24 hours' time, it's going to be what's over here will have moved to where Glasgow is. So the way to do this kind of question is to draw an imaginary line back the way, across this way. Okay? Actually, I've not done that quite right because our weather's moving in that direction. So let's draw a line that way. Okay? So whatever's over here right now is going to be in Glasgow in 24 hours' time. Well, we can't see what's over here because this is the Atlantic Ocean, but they're not showing us the weather over the Atlantic. And on a BBC weather forecast, you would actually get to see what's over the Atlantic. And whenever I'm watching forecasts, I always have a little look over the Atlantic because I know whatever's sitting over there is coming our way. So we've got an imaginary line drawn. So what do I know? What are the key things? Well, I know that in an hour or two, whatever's sitting here is going to be in Glasgow. Okay? I know that a few hours after that, whatever's over here is going to be in Glasgow. A few hours later, whatever's here is going to be in Glasgow. Okay? A few hours later, whatever's over here is going to be in Glasgow. So the best way to approach answering this is to think about Glasgow right now, and I've told you what the wind direction is doing down here. So I've given you the wind direction part. You don't need to do about the wind. What I want to know though is, how's the cloud cover going to change? Well, we can see a warm front. We can see a cold front will be coming. So that's going to affect cloud cover. That's also going to affect temperatures. Okay. If I think about rainfall, well, I know about my two fronts. Which one's coming first? What's that going to do to the weather? Then there's going to be this section in between. So Glasgow's going to spend some of the time in this warm sector. What's that going to do to the temperature? What's that going to do to the rainfall? What's that going to do to the cloud cover? Then it's going to have this area here, maybe about 10 hours time. And then it's going to be in this area. Now this is a cold air mass. Okay, it starts off life in a cold air mass. But over the next 24 hours, these two weather fronts are going to move across it and bring their weather, as well as what is in the warm sector here. Okay, so that's as much guidance I'm going to give you on this one. Quite a lot of steers, but there are 10 marks. And marks are always going to be for explaining why the weather's changing. So when you tell me, I've already done the wind direction for you, but when you tell me something about why the wind speed's changing, what's the evidence for you telling me why the wind speed's changing? When you tell me what the temperature's going to do, what's your evidence for whether the temperature's going to warm up, is it going to cool down, or is it going to do a mixture of both? Cloud cover, will it cloud up? Will it stay cloudy? Will it clear? When will it clear? What's your evidence from the weather map? And finally, how's the rain going to change? Okay.